what does Elon Musk have in store for social media platform Twitter? Why has Turkey arrested the president of its medical association? And will Mallikarjun Kharge be able to lead India's National Congress Party on a new road of revitalization as an opposition force? These are some of the questions we'll be answering on this episode of Daily Debrief, coming to you from the People's Dispatch studios here in New Delhi with me, Siddhantani. First up, in his own words, there's a new chief twit in town, and his name is Elon Musk. The richest man on the planet, Musk adds to his impressive list of ownership of companies the social media platform Twitter. Others, of course, include electric vehicle manufacturer Tesla, Tesla Energy, and space exploration concern SpaceX. Musk will now, having fired several prominent senior management personnel, including, of course, CEO Parag Agrawal, aim to take the platform in his own direction, promising to reduce censorship while also cutting the hate speech and divisive politics at the same time. Musk is undoubtedly full of all kinds of ideas, and the one and only Bappa Sinha is back on Daily Debrief today to share some of those with us. Right, Bappa, good to have you back on Daily Debrief. I was hoping to throw in a ton of sarcasm, but but our editors told us to stick to the straight and narrow. So tell me first. After much back and forth, the deal finally going down, Elon Musk taking control of Twitter. How did things finally fall into place, at least from his perspective?
Yes, it was a fairly it was like a game of going back and forth, right? So if we track it from the beginning, initially Musk had. I think came out with an announcement that he wanted to acquire Twitter way back. Was it? I think it's such a long time back, April or sometime around that. And initially, the Twitter board was very reluctant and didn't want the deal to go through. Then they did an about face and they said, "Okay, we want the deal," because it was a substantial premium over the Twitter's stock price at that time. Once the Twitter board said they wanted the deal, Musk developed cold feet after a few weeks, and then he started to come up with one excuse after the other on why he was not going to go through the deal. So there was all this talk about bots and Twitter not disclosing all the information, and this went for a while. Then finally announced that the deal was off, and the Twitter board then sued him. It went to a court in Delaware. A lot of these corporations are incorporated in Delaware, and so the case went there. I think there was a fairly stern judge who heard both sides and then gave Musk till October 28th for the deal to complete the deal. Otherwise, it was going to go to trial. And right. I think at that point, Musk's lawyers probably felt that if it went to trial, he would lose, right? Because his excuses of getting out of the deal were fairly flimsy, right? He had waived off due diligence and then comes back and says that I didn't know this, I don't know that. And I think the judge pointed out that you yourself had waived off due diligence, and then now you're bringing up technicalities to get out of the deal. So I guess his lawyers felt that if it went to trial, he would lose. And so finally the deal went through.
All right. I guess maybe he was also looking at that magical $200 billion in personal wealth and not wanting to slip below that number. Maybe that had something to do with it. But in terms of the direction that the social media platform might head in, now that he is in charge of things and has come in and fired several members of senior management, what do you think that is likely to take? And how does this idea of reducing censorship and increasing free speech work, along with also making claims of removing or reducing the amount of hate speech and divisive politics that exists on the platform?
Right. So he has his the thing he said was the bird is freed, right? And then he followed that up with a rather long by his standard statement saying that Twitter was acquired because it is important to the future of civilization, and he talks about this is something he's talked about before, that it's a digital square where different opinions need to be heard, and it's a digital town square. Sorry, And so it's basically what he's saying is it's a public space where everybody should be free to give their opinion. Now that in theory sounds good, and to be fair to him, the existing Twitter's censorship policies have been criticized, right? I mean, Twitter's claim that it cracks down on hate speech and tries to ensure that fake news doesn't proliferate. It's a mixed bag, right? I mean, they have, for example, they famously banned Donald Trump for life. But at the same time, they are biased, right? Very biased towards the US establishment, right? And so, I mean, we have seen in the, ever since the developments in Ukraine, any voice which has been critical or even questioned the US establishment view, the NATO view, they have been very swiftly banned, right? So it's by no means, and fake news and hate speech has been freely allowed for the US and the Ukrainian side, right? I mean, yeah, Ukrainian Nazi symbols have been allowed, but Russian voices have been completely shut off, right? So, so I mean, there is grounds to be critical about existing Twitter, right? But Elon Musk's own personal track record is also pretty bad, right? So to expect him to be this beacon of freedom and free speech and all, that's far-fetched, right?
Absolutely.
Elon Musk famously told about, when questioned about the Bolivian coup, said that we coup whoever we want, deal with it, right? So with that kind of
attitude
and colonial mentality, how much he's going to like take forward free speech and future of civilization and all that, it's very questionable, right? I mean, what we are seeing is a transfer of Twitter, of a public town square between one set of elite. The current elite is more aligned with the mainstream democratic US establishment, and Twitter and Elon Musk is more seen towards the Republican Trump camp, right? So it's probably just a transfer between two sets of elites that's happening. It remains to be seen how he's going to deal with Twitter, but I don't think we should raise our hopes on anything substantive happening.
Right. I suppose that's a fair summary of it, Baba, but it will give us, I suppose, some amount of at least ammunition to go on when we have conversations about how free is speech and who is it free for. Thanks very much for the update today. Dr. Şebnem Korur Fincancı, the head of the Turkish Medical Association, has been detained by the Recep Tayyip Erdogan government on charges of spreading terrorist propaganda. The detention came after she was linked to participating in an event which was linked to the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, an organization that is banned and labeled terrorist by the government of Turkey. This is not the first time that Dr. Fincancı has been targeted by the state and is one of the country's most prominent human rights activists. For more details on this story, Anna Vrachar joins us now via video conference. Anna, good to have you back on Daily Debrief, even though we're talking about another sort of assault on medical professionals and activists and, of course, human rights activists. What are the details we have so far of Dr. Fincancı's detention and the explanation given by the government for the actions that they've taken?
Well, the latest information is that yesterday the court confirmed her detainment, which means that she has now formally been placed under arrest. And that means that probably for the next months or even more, we don't know, she will be held in prison. And that's as part of the strategy to isolate her from the rest of the Turkish Medical Association, then of course to weaken the Turkish Medical Association in itself. This comes after the events of Wednesday, when she was detained after a raid on her house, and after she was moved from Istanbul to Ankara, where she was awaiting the court hearing. And so essentially what we have seen in these couple of days is that the Turkish Medical Association has launched a number of actions all across Turkey. Solidarity statements have been sent in Turkey, but also from other places. And then, of course, we have seen some of the activists who were holding the actions in Istanbul, for example, but also in Ankara, where they tried to access the courthouse, who were repressed by the police or stopped from going forward with their action. So yeah, that's the latest.
Right. So why this targeting of the head of an important medical organization? It is, of course, not based on any medical work that she has done.
No, so absolutely not. Dr. Fincancı is a well-renowned doctor. She's a forensic expert. She has worked with a number of international institutions, including the WHO, including the UN. So she trained people on how to recognize mistreatment and how to treat prison deaths in Bosnia, but also in the Philippines, in Israel. So she's an important figure in this regard. And what you have said needs to be stressed. She has been a strong fighter for human rights for decades. And a similar thing can be said for the Turkish Medical Association, which is one of the most progressive medical associations that we can see in the world today. So it comes as no surprise that they're under pressure from a government which is keen on limiting dissenting and criticizing voices. And again, to repeat what you have already said, the repression that's coming, it's not coming because of unsound medical work. So the TMA, along with other trade union of health workers in Turkey, has actually been one of the strongest voices during the COVID-19 pandemic, when they were warning against the things that were going wrong in the pandemic response, the lives of health workers that were being lost because of such a botched response. And then at the end, the Erdogan administration is not keen on hearing that. Yeah. So the response to this has been calling them out in public, sharing some quite far-fetched declarations about what they were doing, and that they were working with terrorists. So it's something that, it's something that has been going on essentially for quite a bit of time. This is not the first time that the Turkish Medical Association has been hit in this way.
Anna, as you were pointing out, sort of since the outbreak of COVID-19, medical professionals, especially organized elements of medical professionals working in the public parts of the health infrastructure there in Turkey, have been very vocal about things that have not gone the way they should have. And in response, the government has called them out, even asked for some of these associations to be abolished or ended and reformed with a more patriotic or nationalistic sort of approach. This is, of course, detrimental to the overall functioning of public health, but it's also it goes far beyond that.
Yes, so in addition to activists from the Turkish Medical Association, the government has also targeted trade union representatives, also from the health and social services. Public Services International only in July warned that 2 of their trade union representatives were either held in prison for a long time or were imprisoned in July. And this is, of course, it's not something exclusive to health workers. We have also heard, of course, about journalists being targeted in the same way. And it's also quite interesting, to look at how the members of the Turkish Medical Association have behaved before. We can take a very, quite a popular example of signing the peace petition in 2016. So the peace petition was a big thing because over 2,000 academics and activists from Turkey called the public to pay attention to the violence that was carried against Kurds in different parts of Turkey. And for that, of course, they were hit hard. So many of them lost their jobs. Many of them were put in court. Many of them lost their passports. So it was essentially, you had people who were left without any income, without the possibility to emigrate. And then with time, many of them were forced to emigrate and look for jobs elsewhere. And essentially, it was an indirect way of just shutting them out of activist life in Turkey. And this is something that many of the Turkish Medical Association members have gone through. It's also interesting to see that, this kind of attack against the TMA, again, comes just months ahead of Turkey's election year. So many have said that also this should be seen as a way or an attempt to silence them before they have the opportunity to speak before the election.
Right. Thanks very much, Anna, for that important update and for continuously bringing us stories from the public health sector that have a much wider imprint, actually. And of course, we hope to have you back on the show very soon.
Thanks.
And finally, after 3 years in limbo, the president's post in the Congress party, India's oldest and once largest political outfit, has been filled. Mallikarjun Kharge, who has been a legislator 9 times over and 3 times come close to becoming chief minister of the southern state of Karnataka, has won the election. Will it mean the Congress party can finally get down to sorting out its internal problems? Kharge is also from the most disadvantaged of India's communities. He's a Dalit. Will that fact help the Congress win over members of the community who have increasingly gravitated towards the Hindu right-wing BJP? More importantly, does it mean the Congress will now have ideological clarity enough to counter its rivals' aggressive and divisive religion-based strategies? Pragya is in studio now to talk more about this subject. Pragya, good to see you on that side of the studio for a change. Why is this election so important? It's an internal election, of course, an intra-party election. And will it, like we were saying, sort of revitalize the Congress as a party and a movement to counter the BJP's quite aggressive politics?
Yes, quite aggressive politics, Siddhant. The thing is that the Congress party is the second largest party right now in the parliament, and it has not had a president for at least 3 years. So that means that there's essentially a vacuum in the leadership in the party that was actually at this. It spearheaded the National Freedom Movement, and it is a party of Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, and his grandson is actually rather at the helm of the party till the 2019 Lok Sabha election. So there is a sort of strange sort of vacuum in the Congress party, which means that the opposition politics is not in a position to take on the religious tinged nationalism, the aggressive Hindutva philosophy of the BJP and its parent organization, the RSS. This is where this election is important. It was not exactly a tightly contested election because it was widely believed that the Congress party itself was favoring a particular candidate, Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, and Kharge has actually won that election. Like you said, he's a 9-time MLA. He came close to becoming the chief minister of an important province, electorally important province, 3 times. The fact is that, yes, he belongs to a disadvantaged community, but the fact that he came close and yet could not become chief minister also does say something about the position of the most disadvantaged community in India, the Dalits in India. Right. Mr. Kharge also doesn't come from the Dalit movement, neither the social part nor the political part. He comes from the Congress party, right. And there the perception is that he would live and work under the shadow of the Gandhi-Nehru family. Now, that could pose a problem because despite the many years of experience that he is 80 years old, he might try to second guess himself every time before he makes an attempt to change the organizational structure or change the way the party works. So the onerous task before the Congress, which is to do better in the next election, its vote share essentially slipped 10 percentage points in 2014 election, in the 2019 election. And the BJP has gained 6 to 7% in those 2 elections. So it's, if it has to counter this party, the BJP, which is a sort of rising force even now, then they would need a strong leader who people can relate to. Mr. Kharge is 80 years old. He would not appeal to the middle class much, is the perception. He would not appeal much to the youth either, is another perception. He is an organization man, but would he want to make the drastic changes that the party needs? That's the big question.
Right. On that front, Pragya, how is the opposition in India sort of shaping up, and what are the expectations of what Mr. Kharge can bring to at least the Congress side of things, along with, of course, some elements of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty or legacy remain very prominently in that sort of fold?
Right. So the challenge for the Congress, apart from doing better itself, is to revamp its own structure, have party members in place right from the grassroots to the top, and also to have general secretaries and other people who lead those teams at the grassroots level. The other thing for the Congress is that there's increasing pressure from the public actually to forge alliances with other parties in the provinces. So, for example, in Bihar, we saw that there was a possibility of such a thing happening because the partner of the ruling party moved away from that alliance into the Congress fold, etc. So, more such alliances have to be forged, is generally believed. Without that, the Congress party would not be independently in a position to really sweep through the country electorally. The other thing is that, you know, the Congress family has a very big imprint on the Nehru-Gandhi family has a very big imprint on the Congress party.
Yeah.
And, you know, while the party might accept that internally, but the issue that would arise naturally is that you have to counter Hindutva and the Hindutva ideology of the BJP, which requires you to present a strong critique of where Hinduism stands today, the majority religion, and how Hindutva is different from, which is aggressive nationalistic Hinduism, how is it different from the religious Hinduism or the cultural Hinduism that most people practice. Perhaps because of her origins, Sonia Gandhi, would find it difficult to
Make
launch
that sort of critique.
Absolutely, but perhaps Mr. Kharge would not find that as challenging. However, it's Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi's son, who has been leading the ideological opposition for the Congress party. The biggest strength for them right now is that Rahul Gandhi is also leading a long march through the country, more than 3,500 kilometers of Bharat Jodo Yatra, Joining India March. And it has been drawing a lot of crowds, including in the state of Karnataka, which is where Mr. Kharge is from. So perhaps we cannot underplay the importance of that march and Kharge's belonging to that state as well. But the task actually is a national task.
Yeah.
And as long as the Nehru-Gandhi family stays at the helm, the leader at the president's post would perhaps scout out to them rather than try to make changes in the party. That's where the challenge is.
All right, an interesting scenario, Pragya. And India is, of course, one of those electoral democracies that is always in some kind of election cycle. So we'll very soon have at least an initial sort of look at the kind of impact that Kharge's election will have. And that brings us to a close on this episode of Daily Debrief. From Pragya, myself, and the entire team here at People's Dispatch, thank you very much for watching. As always, we encourage you to head to our website, peoplesdispatch.org, for details on these stories and all of the other work we do. And don't forget to follow us on the social media platform of your choice. We'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe. Goodbye.